Hey everybody, this is Petey from the Spinner Rack, and you saw what the title said. I'm going to prove to you how John Byrne created Paramount Plus. I just cracked myself up, don't I? Well, I just wanted to show you the parallels between what Byrne was doing in his Star Trek series and what led up to the Paramount Plus. Right? So, do a little bit of cajoling. Well, this is the collection of all of the drawn Star Trek comic books that Byrne did. With a little cajoling, Chris Rael got Byrne to do the first story, which was Romulans. He was kind of dead set against doing, what's that thing? License work. But I'm expecting Paramount to basically veto everything, and they were all for it, right? And Byrne also got the color that he wanted. He wanted kind of a Desilu kind of color, right? And it looks pretty faithful to the characters that were in Star Trek, right? So this one character was not, this Romulan. Now, we also have Assignment Earth, which was we only got a pilot. RIP to Terry Garth. Byrne wasn't able to use her lightness. But he didn't need to, since, he didn't worry about it. So it's shot she can favor her, but he wasn't going for it, right? Just in fear of that not working out. This one of the more fun series with Star Trek. Ooh, that's a nice one too, right? Then the next would be the Hollow Crown with some Klingons that we'd seen and some characters, right? Then we had Crew. This starred number 1. Now, Byrne being a fan of The Cage, and The Cage, we're going to come back to The Cage, right? But this I am going to connect this, but this is a great series, right? And Byrne got to utilize number 1, and at the same time, we got to use Captain Pike, right? And Captain Pike with Spock, right? So we got Spock here, a young Spock, and Captain Pike, similar to Byrne's Reed. So I think the next was Romulan Schism, and then the greatest series of Star Trek never turned into a TV show. This is the covers from Schism is Leonard Nimoy, Frontier Doctor. So if anyone's interested, I'll go back and read those. But this is a really great series, right? This takes place before Star Trek, the motion picture, right? Tell you where McCoy was. So while that was going on, Byrne was kind of doing a lot of creator-owned stuff. And he was also doing the Star Trek stuff that I showed you. And at the same time, at some point, he just said, I think he had a hospital appointment. So he's like, nope. He said, by the time I'm through with this, I'm going to reschedule everything. And what actually happened was he, I guess also with the fact that nothing was really selling that well, kind of decided to pull back on doing comic books. So he had stopped doing some creator-owned stuff and stopped doing Star Trek. And then he was slowing down on commissions also. So it was kind of feeling like a period where Byrne was going to kind of exit comic books. And on his website, he was working on something that he remembered from his childhood, a photo novel, which would be called Strange New Worlds, right? With kind of a gold key covers. All the covers are similar to gold key covers. So in this first one, he kind of tells you the pieces of the action, kind of tells you how he puts these things together, trying to capture the lighting, putting his head on other people's bodies. Give me an example of that, right? So he was working on this, and he was also like, there's possibly no chance of Paramount saying yes to this one, because it's like, basically reusing stuff that was already out there, and fans were getting him high-res stills. And then he said, well, let me call up Chris Rael, let him know what I'm doing. And Chris Rael said, nope, I'm sending this right to Paramount. And Paramount said, yes, do it. And he did the first one, and after seeing it, they were like, can you do more? And then Byrne was like, yes, I think I can, right? So then, but they had some asks, right? So the first ask was, can you do something with the mirror universe? And Byrne was like, yes. And then the second ask was, can you do something with the Borg? And he was like, yes. And then the third ask was, can this guy do something with all of our series? With the next generation and all that stuff? And Chris Ryle was like, no, wait a second. You can't. Byrne is, he's really interested and solely interested in the original series. So Paramount was like, all right, cool. That's cool. You want to just do that? That's fine, right? And I think, I wish I had all of them, but actually I was going to say what my favorites are, but these two are my favorites. But then also, if you go to the con, there's the Hollow Man and other stories, right? And I think, I guess that's good, right? So maybe I'll do two. The Hollow Man and signed by Byrne. I think I showed you guys that. Here's the cover. Spock gets a message, and with the message, he decides that he's going to take shore leave, right? And they'll drop him off, and he doesn't want to say anything about it. And then we see Spock kind of waiting to get a cruiser, right? A shuttle cruiser, right? To take him somewhere. Inquires. They get him the cruiser, right? And he's off. So then we also have McCoy kind of worried about Spock. And Captain Kirk is kind of like, I can't nursemaid Spock. Right? So we see the ship going. It's a considerable distance. And I love this kind of paneling to kind of tell you that he's going further than we might see. And he arrives on this mining area and he runs into his old girlfriend. Right? This is where he had a lot of emotions. He meets up with her. And as he goes in, he runs into her husband, right? Oh, sorry, hold on. Sorry, the sinus is acting up. So Spock is kind of shocked, right? Because someone this hot is going to stay alone for long. And he's asking why he's here. And he said, that's not Alan Becker. So we see him in this quiet sequence. And he said, we were right, right? So then, not getting a word from Spock, all the people on the ship are kind of worried. So Kirk is like, all right, we're going to check out. We're going to check on them. So everything really seems normal, right? But Spock is still kind of in disbelief. So she's saying, use your telepathy. But he has no idea how he's going to get this done, right? So Spock kind of goes off with him, with Alan Becker. They go deep into this area, and it's a ruse. We see Spock falling apart. Like some of the things would be like sort of like the 60s type of effects, right? So your creature also can attack Spock's mind and knocks out Spock, right? So now that he got Spock in a bad place, might as well bring the wife along with him, right? And the crew is coming, but it's going to take a while, 51 hours, right? So Spock is like, now knowing that he's obviously something's wrong with him, he's like, what do you want with her? And they once ruled this character, Suora, once ruled the galaxy, right? So it's not taking any prisoners, right? Right? And once he goes into her mind and also messing with Spock, Spock is like, I'm not taking any chances, right? Spock gets to knock him out, but he also takes on the woman too. And she kind of hits Spock, but then Spock, at the same time, his neck pinch works because she hasn't been controlled that long. So the creature is not connected to them. Spock leaves the creature and he takes the people away, right? But at the same time, they're in a bad way, right? So Kirk now, Spock's in danger. Warp factor 8, right? And they get them all on there. And they realize that the husband is in really bad shape. And Spock compliments McCoy. McCoy can hear it, but he's like, hey, I can't do anything. We need Spock to do this. Maybe his mental powers can do some cleaning up. And they realize it could lose both of them. And she doesn't want to lose Spock at the same time, even though she's married. The choice has to be Spock's, and Spock's handle it. Now, this is the best pick, is that Kirk is kind of out of it. He is not really involved outside of saving Spock and getting there in time, right? So the husband is fixed. right? So husband is there, back to normal, and she says she wants to say her goodbyes, right? So she sees the man she loves, but there's something else. You do something more than just guide him back to consciousness, didn't you? It's like, yes. When I joined with your husband's mind, I found the damage there was much greater than anything that Dr. McCoy had guessed. So he'd become hollow. So that'd be that. So he said he would use his own mind to kind of something that his memories could attach to. And he said, "Is that accepted to you?" He said, "Yes, of course." Right? And he said, "Long live and prosper, Leia." He said, "Part of me will always be with you." Right? Then another favorite is Chekov, Mr. Chekov, right? So at this point, Mr. Chekov is just an ensign, and he's learning about the ship, right? And he has to deal with all the monotonous duties of engineering, right? So nothing's really going on. Kirk is obviously taking a nod. Spock is controlling things. We see the girl from the space seed. It's going to be Khan's baby's mother, right? And with the rise of energy, they see something weird, right? So at the same time, when something goes wrong, they always think of the ensign as the person, and the ship is getting knocked all over the place. So at the same time all this is going, the people in engineering are trying to help out and maintain this stuff, right? So we get to see as things are going wrong, we get to see nice shots that Byrne had kind of done using graphics to create the rest of the ship, right? Yeah, it's almost like a classic kind of Star Trek type tale, right? Where we don't necessarily get to see some of it, but most of it, that's pretty cool. Like, look at that, right? And then they said they need to get set up in the bridge. Yep, I need to be able to monitor all the ship function from one place. So it gives a good position to see why he goes to the bridge sometimes, right? And we see Mr. Chekov is kind of inundated by being on the bridge, all the stuff that's going on, right? He calls out the power levels are rising again, right? And this is what's causing all this crazy stuff on the ship. And as they go in, the more things goes left, right? And we see Kirk doesn't even know Chekov yet, right? So Chekov kind of sees stuff. So earlier, Scotty was kind of telling him he needed to anticipate some of the issues that they might see. Dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. Sorry. And since one of the navigation guys is knocked out, they decided to put the Chekov on navigation. And Kirk is like, "You know about navigation?" And he's like, and Sulu's kind of like, "I've been working with him. He's very good." He said, "We're going to need great." Right? So he gets in there, and Sulu has a little joke there. And then Spock goes to work with Chekov. And he says, "Mr. Chekov, have seemed to anticipate my orders. Well done." Right? Right? And they make it out. And with all of the joy, we have Mr. Scott saying, "Come to the lower deck, below decks." Right? But Kirk said he will remember him. Right? So we've been talking about this for the last 3 months. And then we have Uhura coming in and giving him his thing. So he's moving up to the bridge. All right. And the next is Scotty's story. All right. So classic stuff. So at the same time, I said all that to say, how does that even relate to Paramount? Right. So Paramount is like, they launch it, and the first thing they do is they take a Star Trek. I wish I had the Cage one, but here they try to take a story during the period where Spock and Number One would be around the storyline. They show up. Number One shows up, and Pike in season 2 shows up, right? So they kind of decided, hey, we got a period we haven't touched, and we can deal with more of the crew than the captain, right? So but at the same time, what do? They say, we need a mirror universe thing. And then they also say, I think in season 2, they say they want a Borg thing. No, actually in season 1, there's Borg there. The season 2, they have a hint of the Borg, right? And then the third ask is the next generation. We get Picard. So the ask that they had of Byrne, they did it on their own. So they do Picard, and they do some Borg stuff in both seasons. The third is it Borg related? I can't remember. But it's very much character related. So the only bit that's more Roddenberry is this thing of Spock going nuts when he gets old. And that's kind of since of the struggles with Leonard Nimoy and his likeness, since they were using his likeness and not paying him. He was obviously truculent when it came to the Star Wars stories, and he had issue with what was going on. But then when they called him in to talk about the Star Trek movie, they were like, well, Roddenberry was like trying to sell him on the idea that Spock would show up and then he would basically be shipped to a hospital or shipped back to Vulcan because he went crazy. He's going through this Vulcan process where all your emotions come out at once, and they would just be shipping him back to Vulcan. And Leonard Nimoy said, well, I can't really come back to do that. That doesn't sound interesting. And then they said, oh, well, as long as you want to come back, we'll bring you back. So that's why you still have him in the second half of the story. So a nod to phase one, and then Spock comes back halfway through the story, searching for a higher calling, right? So, and then we see that with Tuvok, Sarek, and now we see it with Spock. So it's this thing where, and I don't think Leonard Nimoy and Gene Roddenberry I think he was trying to describe it as they just didn't always fit, right? So it's kind of thing where he went against the Vulcan idea. He went to Gene Roddenberry went to Romulans and an android that was trying to find feelings, right? So basically, this is just conjecture, but it's interesting to see some of the elements that Byrne said that Paramount asked for. We'd see it in the actual stories. But then it led them to doing stuff with the period that Byrne was doing too, which would be the Pike one, and they called it Strange New Worlds. So there you go, a little story on the Star Trek series and Byrne's connection to it. Not a direct connection, but a close similarity to what they're doing, what they were kind of asking Byrne to do, and what they ultimately did on TV. Spinner Rack out.